people recognize we've got some terrific candidates who are running vigorous campaigns. It's going to be close everywhere we go. It's close here in Nevada. It's going to be close in South Carolina. And, you know, at any given moment, people are going to be making judgments based on who they think is best speaking to them about the urgent problems that they're facing in this country. Now, the one thing I'm convinced about, and this was true in Iowa and this is true in New Hampshire as well, is that change is going to happen because the American people determine that change is going to happen. And that's what I draw from Dr. King's legacy. You know, what happens in Washington is important, and we've got to have elected officials that are accountable and serious about moving forward on the goals of opportunity and upward mobility. But if we don't have an activated people, a unified people, black, white, Latino, Asian, who are all moving in the same direction, demanding that change happens, then Washington, special interests, lobbyists end up dominating the agenda. That's what I want to change.
Senator Clinton, in terms of accountability, you told me on Sunday morning, anytime anyone has said anything that I thought was out of bounds, they're gone. I've gotten rid of them. Shortly thereafter, that same afternoon, Robert Johnson, at your event, said, quote, when Barack Obama was doing something in the neighborhood that I won't say what he was doing, but he said it in his book. Widely viewed as a reference to Senator Obama's book, Dreams from My Father from 1995, where he talked about his drug use as a teenager. Will you now not allow Robert Johnson to participate in any of your campaign events because of that conduct?
Well, Bob has put out a statement saying what he was trying to say and what he thought he had said. We accept him on his word on that. But clearly, we want to send a very clear message to everybody that this campaign is too important for us to either get diverted or, frankly, get the message of what we want to do for our country subverted by any kind of statements or claims that are just not part of who I am or who Barack or John are. Because I think what's critical here is that the American people understand clearly what is at stake in this election. The stakes are really high, and there's an urgent need for leadership on a range of issues, you know, some of which are now becoming right here in front of us about whether or not people are going to be able to keep their homes in Nevada, whether they're going to have jobs. You know, I went door to door in Las Vegas last week, and you know, I met construction workers who've been laid off. I met a casino employee who's already been laid off. So what people talk to me about is not what somebody they never heard of said, but what we say, what we're for, what we're standing for, and what we're going to be pushing for. So I accept what he said, but I think what's important is what I say and what each of us says about the kind of president we intend to be and how we're going to get there.
Were his comments out of bounds?
Yes, they were. And he has said that.
We're going to continue the questioning now with Natalie Morales.
Thank you, Brian. And this is a question for Senator Edwards. It comes to us from Margaret Wells from San Diego, California. Senator, she's asking, the policy differences among the remaining candidates is so slight that we appear to be choosing on the basis of personality and life story. That being said, why should I, as a progressive woman, not resent being forced to choose between the first viable female candidate and the first viable African-American candidate?
Well, I think that the decision for every voter in this election should revolve around, first, whether you believe America needs change. If you do, who you think would be most effective in bringing about that change. We have different perspectives on that. I think the system in Washington is broken. I don't think it works. And I think the American people, middle-class Americans, are struggling and suffering. They can't pay for their health care. They're losing their jobs. They can't pay for their kids to go to college. This is a very personal thing for me. Hillary mentioned a minute ago that I grew up in a family of mill workers. I was the first person in my family to actually be able to go to college. And so this battle for real opportunity for everybody, the kind of chances I've had in my own life, is central to everything I do. It is central to this campaign, and it is a personal fight for me. And I think the decision that voters make about who can best fight for the middle class, who will never give up on the fight for universal health care, who will actually stand up strongly and fervently for the right to organize, for unions to be able to organize in the workplace. These things are not academic for me. They are my life. I believe in them to my soul. And I will fight with every fiber of my being to make sure that everybody gets that kind of opportunity. And I think there are some differences on policy and perspective between the three of us, and I hope we get a chance to talk more about that today.
And Senator Edwards, as a follow-up to Margaret Wells' question, what is a white male to do running against these historic candidacies? Poor John.
You know, I have to say, on behalf of my party, and I've said this many times, I'm proud of the fact that we have a woman and an African American who are very, very serious candidates for the presidency. They've both asked not to be considered on their gender or on their race. I respect that. I do believe, however, that it says really good things about America. And I actually believe that both through these primaries and caucuses and in the general election, that the American people are going to make decisions based on who we are, what we stand for, and what we're fighting for.
Question for Senator Obama. You won the women's vote in Iowa, but Senator Clinton won the women's vote in New Hampshire, and there probably isn't an American alive today who hasn't heard the post-game analysis of New Hampshire, all the reasons the analysts give for Senator Clinton's victory. Senator Clinton had a moment where she became briefly emotional at a campaign appearance, but another given was at the last televised debate when you, in a comment directed to Senator Clinton, looked down and said, "You're likable enough, Hillary." That caused Frank Rich to write on the op-ed page of the New York Times that it was your most inhuman moment to date, and it clearly was a factor and added up. Senator Obama, do you regret a comment and comments like that today?
Well, I absolutely regret it because that wasn't how it was intended. I mean, folks were giving Hillary a hard time about likability, and my intention was to say, I think you're plenty likable. And it did not come out the way it was supposed to. But, you know, I do think that during the course of that debate, there was a tendency to parse out what is, I think, not an issue. I think all three of these candidates are good, capable people. And what we really should be focusing on is who's got a vision for how we're going to move the country forward. And I believe that right now, the only way we're going to move the country forward is if we can bring the country together, not just Democrats, but independents, Republicans who have also lost trust in government, and we are able to push aside the special interests and the lobbyists, and we are truthful with the American people and enlisting them in changing how our healthcare system works, how our economy works, what our tax code looks like. And that is going to be an issue that I think all of us are going to have to struggle with over the coming days. It's not going to be an issue of who's got the nicest smile or who's going to be fun to have a beer with. It's going to be who can provide the leadership that makes sure the country is moving forward through what I anticipate are going to be some difficult times, and who is going to be able to transform how Washington works in a fundamental way.
And one more question about that last televised debate, Senator Edwards. Afterwards, Senator Clinton said it was as if you and Senator Obama had formed a buddy system against her. Senator Clinton put out an internet ad that was entitled "Piling On." Looking back on it, the campaign for New Hampshire in total, do you admit that it might have looked that way?
Might have looked that way or actually was that way. I don't think it was that way. I mean, my job as a candidate for President of the United States is to speak the truth as I see it. I've spoken the truth. I will continue to speak the truth, whatever the consequences are and whatever the perception that people have is. I do believe that I am a candidate for president who is fighting for change, who believes that we have entrenched, moneyed interests in this country that are preventing the middle class from having a real chance. And it's drug companies, insurance companies, oil companies, there are lobbyists. Barack spoke about them just a few minutes ago. It's why I've never, the whole time I've been in public life, taken a dime from a Washington lobbyist or special interest PAC, because I do believe those people stand between America and the change that it so desperately needs in real ways. They're the reason we don't have universal health care. They're the reason we have a trade policy that's cost America millions of jobs. They're the reason we have an insane tax policy that actually gives tax breaks to American companies sending jobs overseas. The promise of America that I and millions of others have lived. And we are in Nevada tonight, a place that people come to in the thousands every day to find the promise of America. because they believe in it. It is central to everything we are as a nation. And I